welcome to the Her Hoop Stats podcast. I am Christy Scott, joined by my girl. Listen, Helen Williams. Listen, you were at Wake Forest back in the day, just a little bit, but you were a hooper. But I know you said you wanted to be a post player. I wanted to be a point guard, so we kind of have reverse roles to start this whole thing.
There you go. Inside, I am 6'6".
I love that. On the outside, I'm 5'6", so I'm a passer on this one. So I love that. We have so much to catch up on in the WNBA, and what a great first half of the league so far. Almost getting to the end of the gauntlet before the All-Star break in Indianapolis, but several things to touch on. And my first thing that I've been most impressed by is the seamless transition that the rookie class this year has made to the W. What do you assess in that regard? And what have you seen? And what's your take on how these rookies have just come in and not only just made a place at the table, but knocked things off the table and made a place for themselves?
And put their feet up on the table, right? Yeah. Listen, I have to credit. I think you credit the coaches, coaching staff. You credit the vets, right? Because it is a transition from college to the pros. But in terms of physical ability, I mean, it's there. In terms of basketball IQ, you got to credit their college coaches, right? Because you got to come in and you got to assimilate and acclimate yourself very well, very soon. And I think these rookies have done a great job. There's a lot of rookies, obviously, that are going to be, in the All-Star game. You do the Mystics games. You got Sonia Citron and Iria Finn. But I really am impressed by two different sets of rookies. One, the veteran rookies that you see at Phoenix, right? They've been playing forever, but this is their first year in the WNBA, and they're making huge differences on teams. And then I really like Sanaya Rivers. Now, she's not going to be in the Rookie of the Year conversation because Connecticut, to put it mildly, is not very good, right? So I'm being nice here. But that kid, that young lady, she has come in, she can facilitate, and she can score. She is a scorer. And I think in the offseason, she's going to have to work on her three-point shot. But in terms of being able to contribute right away, I'm just so impressed with her. And her name doesn't come up a lot because Connecticut's not at the top of the league.
Right.
Also impressed with Tahina Paopao at Atlanta. I think she struggled a little bit at the beginning trying to figure her place out, but you look at her now, her body language is confident. She's taking confident shots. She's hitting shots and making a huge difference for Atlanta.
Mm-hmm. And you've seen, Paige Beckers had a little bit of an injury out of the gates there in Dallas, but what have you seen from her, not only statistically, but as a floor leader for a team with Enrique Gumbuale, et cetera, et cetera? Like, how have you seen her transition from UConn to Dallas?
The biggest transition I've seen for her, she's already a leader on that team, right? We knew about the basketball skills, and it took her a minute, a couple of games just to try to. You could just see her first 2 or 3 games mentally. She was just trying to figure things out, trying to learn her teammates, trying to figure out how to incorporate a Gumbuale to make sure she got her shots. But just in terms of leadership, the things that are not tangible, you can't see them on the stat sheet, is where I am most impressed with Paige Beckers.
Yeah. And then, you have players who have to come in and just they don't have to come off the bench. They're starting in the WNBA in a leadership role. So what do you think in that regard? I mean, you were a guard, so I'm gonna tap into your perimeter thought process here. What would that feel like? Because you want to be aggressive, right? But you're also a rookie, so you don't want to step on toes, but you know what you know. So how do you draw that fine line between understanding your assignment to star in your role, but also, not shy away or delegate too much away, because you also are on a really solid learning curve with the opportunity to start in a system like that?
Yeah, I think first of all, you got to be confident in the work that you put in to know that you're good enough to be out there. You deserve to be out there. And then I think just communication is key. Your coaching staff has got to be straight with you. This is your role. And part of your role is other players buying into that. So that goes back to the coaching staff as well, making sure that, hey, she's here, she's playing this amount of time because she gives us the best opportunity to win.
Right.
And so I think it's a combination of things, but I think knowing your role, what that is, and then putting in the work, getting in the film room, because a lot of the confidence comes from you being able to slow the game down because it's so fast when you make that transition that if you spend enough time in the in the gym, obviously with your shots, but watching film, getting the intellectual part is I think the biggest piece to making sure you're confident and you can contribute.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. And I know, we've mentioned several names of rookies, but and I know we're not even to the halfway mark of the WNBA season. If there is an early list for you for rookie of the year, and you can make it 3, you can make it 5, you can make it 10, but who has stood out the most to you, like in a list, and in no order, but who has really
Thanks for not having me put it in order.
I, I did that because I don't like doing stuff like that. Yeah,
um, I mean, I think Sonia Citron, I don't think people realize how athletic she is. They always talk about her smarts and her basketball IQ, and that's all true, but I don't think they realize how athletic she is. So she would be, in the top. Obviously, Kiki Iriafen started off doing really well. I think slowed down a little bit. Maybe that's because, Shakira Austin is now healthy and able to put in some minutes. Obviously, Paige Beckers. Those would be my top. But then, and Tahina Pau. I would love to have Sanaya Rivers in that conversation, but it like I said, because of her team, probably not going to be in that.
yeah, I know when Pow Pow came in to DC and she hit about 3 or 4 threes, and we were going out to commercial. I was like, "That's a Pow Pow Pow!" Like that's so
She's got the perfect last name, doesn't she?
good.
Yeah.
I tripled that out for her because she's just dynamic, and she did it with so much confidence. And we were talking Kiki Iriafen, here in DC, she was shooting 50% out of the gates, right? For Washington, getting nice touches. I mean, her hands are so soft in there, Helen. Like you could just throw it in her area and she's gonna gather it in. But her footwork is tremendous. But what I think has been different for her, yes, Shakira has increased as a starter in the last 6 games for DC. But I also think that for Kiki, she's being covered differently defensively. I mean, they're shadowing her, they're putting people up the line, they're double teaming, they're blitzing
Yep.
from the side. It depends on who's on the strong side corner, but they're going to come sit on her lap on that first or second dribble when she tries to make a move. So they're crowding her space. So I think that's sped her up a little bit. You're talking about slowing the game down. I think the defensive coverages for Kiki Iriafen in particular have changed, and I think that has changed her efficiency, in terms of the shots that she was getting early on.
Yeah, and I think her skill set, the offense that Sydney Johnson's runs. I mean, I love the Princeton concepts. I'm a big fan. Whenever I see that, I'm just like, oh my god, this is going to be a great game. But she has the skills to be successful in an offense. I think I mentioned a few podcasts ago. I was really upset with people who, when she was coming out, said that she couldn't do certain things because they were only looking at the numbers. And as a former coach, numbers are great, but I see what I see, right? And I think that she'll figure that out. That offense is fit for her style, and she'll figure it out.
Yeah, no doubt. And you have, you were talking about Sonia Citron too, and how athletic she is, and I can definitely attest to that. But I think even going back to Notre Dame days, right? You didn't call her name out enough.
No,
Name, right? What was that? I mean, she's the glue player, and sometimes you get lost in the consistency of excellence of some players because of that. That's why Diana Taurasi was only MVP one time in her 20-year career. Same with the late great Kobe Bryant, one time MVP. But
take it for granted.
you're just so used to them being consistent and excellent and on it and just boom, boom, boom. So they're not going to go from 0 to 1,000 and say, "Oh wow, look at this drastic jump, MVP." Right? So do you see that in Sonia Citron, just in terms of her consistency and her ability to be a glue player in the WNBA as being one of her greatest assets?
Yeah, but I also think her asset is she can be a glue player and at some point be the woman too, right? It depends on the situation and the game, because obviously they're, I believe, the youngest team in the league, right? And so there are times when she needs to be the glue, and there are times when she needs to hit shots, and there are times when she will defend and get steals. So I think she has the ability to be both. But to your point, I think people do get lost. Like, she is not, like, she's sneaky athletic, so you're not going to see a whole lot where people go, ooh. You just look up at the end of the game at the stat sheet, and she's got a double double, or she's got steals and rebounds and points, and all the things that coaches want from a player that other people don't see because you can't quantify them.
Exactly. But without the basketball for me, I'm like, just to know when and where to take a backdoor cut, the timing,
Right.
the play is stagnated, it's 5 seconds on the shot clock, and somehow she understands where to go, you know, and it's right where she needs to be. And coaches appreciate that too, right? When plays break down, they blow up your first 3 or 4 options. Now you're in grenade zone where you got to make a play. And she doesn't have the basketball in her hand, but she still manages to make a play for the team without the ball. And that to me has been, something that has risen my eyebrows on more than one occasion with her. A lot of moves and shakes in terms of what's been going on in Phoenix. You have DeWanna Bonner now in the mix. You have a healthy Alyssa Thomas and others on the team as well. What do you see with that move of DeWanna Bonner going from Indiana to Phoenix? And what do you think that mix is going to look like in the middle of the WNBA season? That's always tough, right? To add a piece, and not just a piece. You're adding a former WNBA champion there.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I didn't have on my bingo card that Phoenix would be as good as they have been without starting without Copper and without Natasha Mack. So let's
Yeah.
give them credit for that, because I certainly didn't have them where they are now.
Yeah.
But I think, Bonner can still help them spread the floor. She can shoot threes, but more than anything, it gives them an experienced vet, and it gives them an experienced vet that can fill in for people that are hurt, right? You've got Sabali, who was in a boot, right? You've got Copper, she's not on a minutes restriction, but they're working her way, they're working her back in. You got Lexi Held, who's been hurt,
Right.
and so I think at the beginning of the year, not having Copper, not having Mac, gave the veteran rookies opportunities to contribute and get real-time experience in and develop some chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
And then so that when you don't have these players, you have somebody like Sammy Whitcomb, who had, 29 points in the first half the other night. And so Bonner is somebody that she's a starter that comes off the bench, if you will. I mean, I don't know what her role is going to be, with Phoenix, but she comes in, and you shouldn't lose a whole lot, especially on the offensive end. And we'll see how she integrates herself into their defense. So I don't think that it's a bad thing that she's there, mostly because when people are out and hurt, you've got an experienced vet who can fill in that spot, and you shouldn't miss a beat, at least on offense.
At least on offense.
Yes.
At least on offense. Yeah. I think, when she went to Indiana, it was almost kind of like, it was to me, it's a similar dynamic, right? You have this vet who is coming in 15 years of experience in the WNBA, right? But then you have these I'm talking about with Indiana, and now you have these young players like Caitlin Clark and, Aaliyah Boston and the whole squad, really. And then you have this veteran piece. And I remember her saying at the beginning of the season on how she was going to acclimate herself into that kind of system there in Indiana with some really young rising stars in the league. She said she just didn't want to get in the way of that growth for them, but she wanted to assist them. So there's got to be that fine line. And if you're DeWanna Bonner in Phoenix right now, do you keep that same mentality there because it's kind of similar, or do you go in there with a different kind of mindset? And if so, what would that be?
I mean, if I'm her, I'm going in there going, what do you guys need? Like, whatever you need, I can give it to you. If you need me to shoot threes, I'll shoot threes. If you need me to be a leader and a vet, I'll do that. If you need me to fill in the post, I'll do that, because she has all those skills. And at 15 years in the league, she's not going to play, 40 minutes. But I think for her, whatever minutes she gives, her mentality should be that those should be quality minutes.
Yeah.
And again, depending on, because they've had so many different lineup changes because of injuries.
Yes.
I know that Alyssa Thomas is the Swiss Army knife in terms of facilitating, but DeWanna might be a Swiss Army knife in terms of where she fits in when she goes in where she fits in the rotation.
Yeah. No doubt. And you have Alyssa Thomas now with 12 triple doubles.
That's crazy.
That's
When she signed, I was like, well, I thought you guys said you wanted to shoot threes. How is she going to fit in to what you want? But and you watch her, and it doesn't matter. People are playing off her because they know she's not going to shoot threes, but she's still effective. Like DHOs, dribble handoffs, screens. You take your life into your own hands if you run into her or if you stand in front of her while she's dribbling. It is a business decision. It is a life decision when AT is coming at you with the basketball. So I'm just, again, I got to give that coaching staff credit because I just didn't see it at the beginning of the season.
Yeah. No. When she was at Maryland, I remember, her nickname in College Park was the A Train, Baby Braun, all the things that make you consider if you're going to step in front. And all the time I thought about it, it was a whole no. Like, yeah, we're not doing it. But she just has such a power packed game, and you don't have to shoot the three, right? Everyone's like, because of analytics now, it's like, well, are you 3-and-D? What kind of player are you? And yeah, if you can have 12 triple doubles, you're impacting the game in
Right.
100 different ways. So be that. That's your triple. That's the triple you need. The triple double. You don't need the triple shot all the
Right.
time.
Exactly.
So yeah, be all the things. But I've just been mesmerized by the All Star voting and the talks. Now they've selected the teams, and since that's coming right around the corner soon, let's kind of tap into that with Alyssa Thomas. Let's just start there because what is it about? Is it again a consistency of excellence situation? She has said, I don't really think about it. I mean, she's a competitor, so I mean, she's being asked about it. So obviously, there's a thought process behind the answer. But when you're looking at her saying, "I've always been disrespected," do you think that's the edge that she needs to conquer what she has been able to do statistically, or is she just in her own zone with that and it's not outside motivation for her? Or what do you take from her not being an all-star starter this year?
I think that's par for the course in how people view her. There's a lot of eye candy out there, and she's just solid. Again, you and I were coaches, and we would recognize that, and we would be excited about that. But everyone else looks at all the periphery and the exciting things, and they don't look at those small things that she does really well on a consistent basis. And I do think she has a chip on her shoulder that works for her, but I also think she plays within herself. She's not going to go out there and shoot three. She knows what she's good at. She knows that she's a very important piece of whatever team she plays for. That's how I judge all stars. Like who does this team need? Like who can they not be without? And she's certainly that type of person. So I'm not sure she wants to be respected because it works for her. Because she can keep that chip on her shoulder. And the only thing she's missing is the championship. She's been so close.
Yeah.
She's been so close.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. And I know, it's the All-Star break is usually, there's a lot of respect obviously when you are voted as an All-Star, whether it's a starter or as a reserve player as well. But what can you boil down from how the rosters have now been chosen by Caitlin Clark and Nafisa Collier?
I went and I was like, who do I think is going to win this game? And I'm looking, and I got to give the edge to Collier and her team, partly because there's some youth on Caitlin Clark's team.
Yeah.
And Collier's team is just full of old heads, right? It's full of old heads that are, with the exception of Becker's, that are just competitive. Like Skylar Diggins will bite your head off.
Yeah.
Right? She's so competitive. Agumake is playing like she's, her first or second year in the league.
Me.
Stewie is Stewie. Chelsea Gray, moves like an old woman, but she gets it done. I mean, it's just full of old heads, and I give them the edge. Although Clark's team obviously is very talented, so we'll see if I'm right.
It's so funny. I saw it somewhere. I don't know who said it, but it was somewhere online after the team rosters were selected and everything. And someone said, "Oh, okay, I see that Caitlin picked the team for entertainment, and Fee chose the roster to win." And I thought that was spot on. I was like, "Yeah,
You know what? That is good because if I want a point guard, I want Chelsea Gray. I want her handling the ball, right? I want the ball in her hands. So that's apropos for sure.
yeah." She's gonna have the goggles up and the whole thing. I mean, her passes and the wisdom behind the decisions on where to place basketball on passes is just elite, to say the least. That's why they call her point guard. But I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I like how they made up their own rules, how they swapped and traded the coaches. For Helen Clark was like, "I don't know if it's a rule, but it's a rule today, and this is what we're going to do." And the WNBA was like, "All right." But what did you think about that popcorn moment during the selection?
I thought it was cool, and I thought it was fun. I mean, obviously, making the All-Star team, whatever, it's an honor, and you obviously want to win because you want the money. But it's a great opportunity to have fun, to see personalities of teams, and just enjoy the game, and to see the level that women's basketball talent has risen to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know, going back to what you said about Phoenix, not being on your bingo card because of all the early injuries and everything like that. But then now with Bonner, a new straw to stir the drink there, and we'll see what that looks like moving forward in the season. But when you're looking at, surprise teams overall, are there any other, maybe two or three teams that have surprised you out of the 13 teams in the league right now?
Yeah, I also didn't have on my bingo card that Las Vegas would be where they are. Um, I'm looking at them, and I'm thinking a couple things about them. One was was letting Kate Martin the right thing to do. Could there have been a different choice there, given what she has done for Golden State? Um, I think getting Smith was a good acquisition for them. I said last week, people are all caught up on the first round, this, that, or the other. It doesn't matter. Second round, you can
Yeah.
get quality players. One of which is Aaliyah Nye, who got drafted in the second round this year, and she's contributing. So that's a positive. And I think Smith is going to be a positive for them. As soon as she gets used to how things run, I wouldn't be surprised if they isolate for her, run a couple things for her on offense once she gets used to it. So that thing, and then I'm going to give you something unconventional.
Okay.
Another team that surprised me was the Minnesota bench
Okay.
because at the beginning of the year, I was like, New York has the best bench, and everybody's saying it's going to be Minnesota and New York in the finals. And I'm like, right now, at the beginning of the year, I thought, well, New York's going to have the edge because they have the better bench. But I think now Minnesota, they have a rotation of 9 players. I think I said at the beginning of the year, Diamond Miller needed to do more, and she's been doing more. And Cheryl Reeves had more confidence in her. So, I don't know if it's a chicken or egg, but she's doing more. The acquisition of Kleakova,
Yeah.
I think is good for them. Jessica Shepard is basically a starter. She just happens to come off the bench, and then Heidemann. So that second team for Minnesota has been a really interesting surprise for me.
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt. Depth is always going to be a key piece, especially as the season progresses, right? And the mileage gets a little long for the
Yeah,
starters. Have people come in and you don't miss a beat. But going back to what you said really quickly about Las Vegas being a surprise, being where they are, kind of in the middle of the road there in the standings, just around 500 or just below. I think when you're looking at what they lost outside of Kate Martin, too, right? You're looking at Alicia Clark, right? You're looking at Plum.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, you're looking at Tip, right? Tiffany Hayes. I mean, those players had not only experience, but they were dogs on the defensive side too. And
Yeah,
a lot of
yeah,
point of contact defenders, right? Like they're the first layer of the defense. So they're tempo controllers, not just because if they get the ball, steal and score. I'm talking about you have to get through them turnstile wise before you touch the paint. So I think to me, it's been a defensive differential with those players gone. And yes, I concur with what you said about Kate Martin too, because wow, she's like what we saw that at Iowa. So that's not like we're not surprised by what Kate Martin is doing, but the upside for her continued development, yeah, you would have liked to see that around more vets there. But I really think it's the chemistry on the defensive end that has really been a conundrum right now for Las Vegas. And you even heard Becky Hammond. I mean, she doesn't ever, mix her words. She's going to tell you exactly what it is. And she didn't say specifically defense, and she didn't say because of roster moves and free agency and all that stuff. But she did say that was the worst basketball I've seen. Right. And usually, and we coach, like you said, but usually when that happens, it's because of the defense, right? You're not always going to shoot the ball well, but you're always going to have your defense in that back pocket. And you're always going to have the energy and the motor to get things done. What's your take on it possibly being the roster movement because of the defense that they've lost that has changed the tide in terms of the W's in the chat for the Las Vegas Aces?
Yeah, I think you make a great point because their defensive transition and their points to the paint this year has increased exponentially from last season, and they've struggled with that,
Mhm.
and which means that they don't get enough opportunities on their own offensive fast breaks. So to your point, losing that core who communicated very well on defense, I think is to your point very huge.
Yeah, it's a big difference maker. I mean, to me, that's why when they were struggling a bit, I was like, trying to figure it out too. And they also come in to the district pretty soon, so I was trying to have my eyes on them here for a little bit. But when you're looking at, the surprise teams, like for me, I'm looking at the Atlanta Dream, right? With first year head coach Carl Smesco. We coached at Maryland together as assistants, so a really good friend there. But I've been intrigued by how he has gone from Florida Gulf Coast, where they shot a copious amount of threes, like over 40, like led the country several times over during his tenure there, letting those arrows fly. That's what he called them, the arrows. But to not only that, but to have the complement of the interior play, right, with Brittany Griner and Bree Jones. And both of them also have been able to stretch the floor a little bit this year. What have you seen from the Atlanta Dream, and have they been a surprise for you in terms of where they are in the standings, which is the top echelon?
Yeah, I think I did Florida Gulf Coast in the championship like 3, 4 years ago, and you're right. It was just three after three after three, and it was when Kirsten Bell was playing for them.
Yeah.
It was her senior year. What I'm most impressed with is that he has just adjusted what he wants to do with the talent that he has. I said I don't know next year if the team's going to look just like it does this year because I don't think he got to choose per se what team he got, and so he'll be able to fashion it more in his image later.
Right.
But as a coach, you go with what you have because you need to win the game. And so when he is needed to have an inside presence, he's played Brittany Griner more. He's played her with, Bree Jones. When he's needed outside, he's gone with a smaller lineup. And his offense has really allowed Ali Shagray to just flourish. I said I don't know why she's not in the MVP conversation because she is getting to the basket and the free throw line at will, and it's because of his offense. So I've definitely been impressed with that piece, but more just, hey, what do we need right now to beat this team today? And he has just adjusted, and that's a sign of a good coach with no ego.
Yeah, no doubt. He's a savant. I will say that. I mean, he's always been like that. He's very stoic with what he does, but he's very calculated, very, very thoughtful with how the game is going to unfold. And not only that, but it's the in-game adjustments too, right? He's ready, and he's already had those planned out because he's probably thinking, if I'm playing my team, what would I do? And it's almost like that's how he approaches the game because the adjustments that are made are very seamless and they're very quick, but it's nothing that he's throwing out there that they haven't worked on. Like
They're
he's
sometimes very subtle.
very subtle, but he's already worked on the adjustments because he already kind of figures, well, if I were me and coaching against my team, this is what I would do. And we coached, and that's a great way to approach the game, right? So you're not surprised by anything that they throw at you. And then when they do change things midstream, you're able to make that pivot. And sometimes that'll save you and keep you in the win column. So kudos to them. And what you said about Alicia Gray, I mean, this is the third time she's been an all-star, right? And all three times have been in Atlanta. But kudos to her because this is the first time with Carl Smesco being coach. So she's been able to continue her exponential rise and steadiness. And we're talking about consistency being a major deal. But for her to be able to do that, right, and have a coaching change and still, hit the ground with the same cadence, I just give her a ton of respect too.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think she's better this year than she was last year. And I think she's always been confident, but she knows nobody can stop her. And I'm like, she's left-handed. Don't let her go left. But it's so much easier for me to say than for somebody out there to keep her from doing that. And I've just been very impressed with just she's raised her game this year from last year.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's just been really fun to watch, and that's been a surprise for me. And not that I thought they wouldn't be very good, but I was really intrigued to see how they would present themselves, and it's been really fun, to watch that. So pleasantly surprised, not shockingly surprised. So let me clarify that. Carl, what's up if you're listening? Hey, yeah, I want so I keep that Starbucks coffee thing going. But anyway, with the season being where it is, and we kind of already discussed the rookie race, right, for rookie of the year. Let's take it to player of the year and MVP. I know you were talking about Gray, Alicia Gray, being in that conversation. Who else do you think is maybe the top five front runners right now for the MVP, early MVP,
I mean, obviously Collier, right?
MVP?
She can. I love that commercial where they say where she's just like giving the look when she's walking off and she's blocking the shot. I think she has been another one who just does stuff all the time, and people I think take that for granted. Um, and you can never take Asia Wilson out of the picture, no matter how Vegas is doing. So those two and Alicia, and then um, if I think about it, that's a good question. I didn't really.
Oh, that's okay. You leave it at
No,
that.
no, no. I have what's the kid's name?
From which one? Which team?
Uh, I do like Agumake. I know people are like,
I'm mad at it.
yeah, but she's been consistent for the most part. She's been consistent. Now she won't win it, just like Sanaya Rivers won't win Rookie of the Year. But I just love how consistent she's been at this time in her career. And then AT's got to be in that conversation.
Yeah,
Got to be.
gotta be in it. I agree. I agree with all of those. And going back to what Skylar Diggins said, right, about NECA, she was giving her flowers on one of the press conferences and got emotional about it. I love Sky for that, right? She's just so vulnerable and open, huge heart. But she said, she's the most disrespected MVP. Do you agree with that? I mean, I do. I feel like she is still, like you said, consistently consistent. And we're just not talking about NECA enough in terms of what she's been able to do and outside of what she's doing with the Players Association being president, right? I mean, she's doing fabulous things off the court, but on the court, I mean, she's a consummate leader. She's a consummate pro, in early, leaves late, right? And making an impression on someone who is as detailed as Skylar Diggins is, right? With excellence. And to get like flowers and a crown from Skylar Diggins, I mean, that's a lot of respect in and of itself. But Neka Gumake, I mean, I'm just in full agreement with Sky on that.
Yeah, I think again, we're coaches, so we look at certain things, and what's your definition of MVP? Like people have different definitions of it, and so that means they're going to be a different group of people of players that they consider for that. And I think there's a lot of eye candy out there. It's great. It's entertainment. But when you get down to it, like somebody like Skylar Diggins, who would just knock your block off, says that about a player and enjoys playing with a player like that. That says a lot.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. I mean, players know, right? Players know.
Yeah.
And that's a high level of respect for sure. And I love that moment. I just thought that was precious to me. Teammates giving that kind of love and respect. That's what it's all about. And that's the sisterhood of women's basketball, right? And that's why I love it too. And it's a great example for the players coming behind them. But with that being said, it's getting down to it. The second half of the season, and I know again it's early, but if you have some early front runners to win the whole thing,
I knew you were going to ask that. I knew you were going to ask that. So, the
okay,
beginning of the year, I said New York because of their bench.
okay.
But I'm going to say today,
Day
all things being equal, Minnesota by a smidge.
by a skosh.
Just because I just think that there are things that you can't quantify, and they've gone through the cycle already. They've gone through the heartache, right? They know what it takes to win. They know what not to do, what to do, and as long as their bench produces, I think that they have. I think it won't be in just 3 or 4 games. I think it'll go the distance. Definitely 6, maybe 7. If Jonquel Jones doesn't play, then for sure Minnesota. But if she does play, it's going to be close. But I'm going to go with Minnesota.
Wow, I like that, and I think it's obviously health goes into everything, right?
Yeah.
In terms of how teams present for the second half of the season. But the way Minnesota has played the game, on the defensive side, and I think, as you
On
know,
both ends, though, on both ends.
both ends, right?
But defense wins championships. You're right.
I think that's been the most impressive thing to me about them, right? And it's collective. It's like the entire team. It's not just Fee because she was Defensive Player of the Year, but she's the head of the snake in that regard. But when you have your best player locked in on defense, I mean, the rest of the team has no other choice but to join the party, right? And get on the same page. So, how much of that from Nafisa Collier for Minnesota on the defensive side, being the reigning Defensive Player of the Year? How has that, do you think, fueled the defensive prowess for the Lynx so far this season?
When your best player is your hardest worker and most intense, everybody's going to fall in line, right? And I thought for Minnesota, out of all the teams in the league, were in sync on both ends of the floor earlier in the year than everybody else, right? Normally, your defense it comes along before your offense, and you've got to get some chemistry. But their offensive movement with and without the ball has been exquisite at times, and they're locked in on both sides of both ends of the court. But when your best player is your best defender, and she's blocking shots and getting steals and just a presence in there, I think that's huge.
That's a major deal. It's a major deal, and I just think it's been really fun to watch too. And Cheryl Reeve, I mean, executive of the year, coach of the year several times over. Olympic gold medalist coach. I mean, she's just done it all. So
Knows a little bit, right? She's
figuring it all out. So
I'm sorry to cut in, and I know this is 2 days in a row for me, for everybody that's watching. If you quit looking, I have to do this because of what y'all have been talking about and what you're talking about right this second, just so people have an idea of where we are at the time of recording.
Okay.
The Phoenix Mercury are ahead of the Minnesota Lynx 40-37 at halftime right now.
Oh.
Alyssa Thomas, 15 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds, 1 steal. Running the show,
My God.
DeWanna Bonner, in her first game in a Phoenix Mercury, back in a Phoenix Mercury uniform, off the bench was 7 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal. It's all at halftime at this point.
Still in the stat sheet.
Yes, and
all right, B-Mac.
Y'all just talked about Nafisa Collier. She is 2 of 3 from the field. They are obviously, you can tell the defense is
Spouting her.
Yeah, it's on her. 4 points, not having her typical game, and they are being led right now by Courtney Williams with 12 points.
Oh, wow. Ooh,
I got to give Courtney Williams her
oh,
flowers
yeah,
because I think she's done a great job of just taking what people give her and playing her role. Like in the past, she, I think, has been a little shot happy, maybe a little selfish, but she's come into Minnesota and fit in seamlessly and taken good shots and made good decisions and it's paid dividends for Minnesota.
yeah. I mean, she's the mid-range maestro. That's what I call her. I mean, she's just so fluid with it. She knows exactly where she's going to strike, and she baits you into it and gets right to where she wants to go every single time, right at the
That
nail.
right side, on that right side.
Yep, every single time pulling it up. But I think she's been a key piece. Obviously, when fee is being doubled, right? They got to come off somebody, and they have to leave somebody free to go to work, and that can be a blessing and a curse because you leave somebody free and they're not marking shots. But a one possession game, BMAC, I think that's really impressive with fee only going 2 of 3 so far from the floor. But Helen, what do you see from that? The one possession game and fee not having a lot.
Yeah. This brings me to a point that I did make about the All-Star. Kaylee McBride is going to be so key to them winning a championship, and she should have been an All-Star. I think she got snubbed, and she's I don't know if it's going to be today, but she's just due for a ridiculous game from 3-point range. She hasn't had it yet, but she's one that needs to score whenever they clog up and double team on Nafisa Collier.
Yeah.
And because I'm throwing the stats out there, she's 2 of 5 from the 3-point line so far in the first half.
Okay.
6 points. So
thank you. I love when the numbers just validate my gut feelings. Love it.
and I'm gonna slide off here and let y'all finish this up because I don't want Aaron to feel like he has to pay me to produce and to be a host. So
why not, B-Mac?
shout out, Aaron. If you want to throw something more in the check, I'm good with it.
Yeah, throw something on the check, Aaron. Give
Thanks, B-Mac.
Put some cheese on it.
How about that? I forgot they had an early game today.
I forgot that too. Wow. Yeah, we got to check the rest of it out because it sounds like it's a barn burner for sure. But I think that was awesome. First of all, BMAX to jump in for the live update there because we were just talking about them. So both teams really like Phoenix and Minnesota. So I think that's going to be a great matchup for sure. But I guess just is there anything else league wide that you wanted to touch on? I know those were our subjects of discussion that we wanted to dive into today. But is there anything else that stands out to you that you want to close out with here?
I will just be interested to see if anybody, who's going to be in that 4th spot because it's everybody's right there, so it'll be really interesting to see who ends up in the 4th, 5th, and 6th spot.
Yeah, it's going to be, and I love it. I think after the All-Star break, all that traction goes to that towards the end, and who's going to sprint the hardest and the smartest, and stay healthy. Obviously, is what we're.
That is key. Staying healthy.
Yeah, everybody's staying good, but yeah. Oh wow. Well, where can people find you? What are you doing? Let's keep people in touch with Helen.
Listen, they can find me at Coach for the Coach on Blue Sky, on Twitter when I'm doing it, on Instagram as well. Happy to talk with people on those sites and just continuing to be on here and talking WNBA for the summer until the summer's almost over now. I think about it. And the college season will be here before you know it. So I'll be doing some stuff with ESPN.
Yeah, ESPN. You've been doing such a great job, obviously, as always. And I love hearing your voice when you're on there and just so wise and smart. And you just love the game and it oozes through you. So I just want you to know that. So I'm giving you your flowers on that. And I love listening to you.
Thank you so much. Ditto. I steal stuff from you when I'm listening to it. I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. I'm going to use that.
Hey man, it's like recipes, just like plays in basketball. We were coaching. I know I wrote down all the plays and try to use them. But
exactly.
That's all love always. Thank you so much, Helen, for joining us today. And I cannot wait to catch back up with you in person for a change. I know we're always moving and shaking, but I can't wait to see you in person sometime soon.
It was great working with you today.
Oh my gosh. All right, you guys. You don't have to go home, but you got to get up out of here. That's it for this edition of the Her Hoop Stats podcast. Love y'all.